incredible space, incredible day, and I'm very thankful to be here with you guys. Is this getting some feedback, or are we good? Are we good? Yes, very glad to be here with you guys. My goal this morning is just to share a little overview of my story, touch on the theme end, and open it up for Q&A. So I'll take you back not too far, but I was a junior in high school when my life truly got changed because of an organization called Young Life. I grew up without a father, and Young Life is an organization of leaders that go into the high school and build relationships with kids. And I had a Young Life leader come into my life and really take me under his wing. He'd invite me over to his house for dinner. He would teach me about love, God, family, life. And he really gave me my first opportunity to get in on a stage and actually speak. And one of the hardest messages that you can give is getting up in front of your peers and actually giving a message. So he gave me my first opportunity to speak. And Young Life is really the vehicle that helped kind of shaped me as a young man, and also equipped me to do a lot of the work that I'm doing today. So at 19 years old, I chose not to go to college, and I moved up to Salem, Oregon area, and I started a Young Life in that area. And for 4 years, I did Young Life, formed a team, raised a committee, called college students into a mission bigger than themselves. And at 24 years old, I was just transitioning out of Young Life. And I had a lot of vision of what I wanted to do or ideas of things that I wanted to do, but I didn't know exactly kind of what direction. And that's an incredibly frustrating place to be when you have a lot of good ideas or a lot of vision and you're just kind of like, man, I don't know exactly like which direction I should actually go. And at that same time, as frustrating as that was, my mom was going through a really difficult time. And my mom ended up losing her mother and her brother pretty close within each other. And just like anybody, like losing a close family member really sent her in a downhill spiral where she just struggled mentally and emotionally. Those were her pillars. Those were the two people, her mom and her brother, that she would go to in times of support, financial support, emotional support, and those people were gone. And so it really sent her on a downhill spiral, and she calls me up one day, and she goes, Bob, I'm doing it. I'm going to move across the United States and start my life over. And I'm like, well, Mom, you're crazy. Like, that's insane. She's like, no, I'm going to do it. She calls me 3 days later. She's like, I sold everything I have left on Craigslist, and I booked a one-way plane ticket from Oregon to Florida, and all I'm taking with me is a suitcase and 2 pairs of interview clothes. So she flies over to Florida. She thinks her aunt's going to take her in. Her aunt doesn't take her in, so she ends up sleeping on beaches and benches. And that completely changed my paradigm of how I view and understand homelessness. Because I was the guy that would drive by folks on the street and whisper under my breath, go get a job. And I had very little understanding or compassion to folks on the street. And the irony is I truly considered myself an activist. Like I was, like if a kid's born into hunger, like that's an issue, we need to do something about that. If a woman gets swept up into sex slavery, like that's an issue, we need to do something about that. But homelessness was like, work harder. Like, well, you probably ended up in that situation because of choices you made in your life. Like that was my mentality. I remember literally driving by somebody holding a sign and whispering under my breath, go get a job. And so when my mom ended up in that situation, it completely changed me because my mom has 2 college degrees. She's managed restaurants, and she raised my sister and I by herself. She's the hardest working woman that I know. So now I'm dealt with the hardest working person that I know ending up in a situation that I said work a little harder. And so it inspired me to actually do something about homelessness. So I started to call my local homeless shelters and ask what they needed, and they all said blankets. And I came up with the idea that for every blanket that somebody purchases from our company, we'll donate a blanket to that person's local homeless shelter. And I felt like I was familiar with the one-for-one model, like Tom's had been around for like 8 years at that point. But I felt like the evolution to the one-for-one model was actually making it local. Like giving people all around the United States an opportunity to make a difference down the street from where they live. That was the evolution of the one-for-one model. I had this idea, and I'm telling people about it. They're like, Bob, you should do this. And I did what most people do when they have a really incredible idea. I did absolutely nothing about it. And so I find myself sitting in my car. I'm applying for jobs. Nobody's getting back to me. And by the way, if you're sitting in a non-moving car, that's typically not a good sign. That, I was having one of those what is the meaning of life moments. And I'm applying for jobs. Nobody's getting back to me. I have this idea, and I'm not doing anything about it. And my mom's going through this difficult time. And I'm kind of just, pity party, it's like, woe is me. Like, I can't believe I'm in this situation. I'm a 24-year-old. And I'm in my Honda Civic, my seat's leaned back all the way, my knees are up on my steering wheel, and I look up, and on my knee there's a coffee cup, and on the coffee sleeve it says, "What are you waiting for?" And my first thought was like, what the hell coffee company puts quotes on their sleeves? And my second thought was like, I think I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna pursue this. So I thought it was so bizarre, like the quote's just like looking right at me. And I pull out my phone and I take a photo of it, and I tell myself, one day when I give my first TED Talk, I'm gonna blow this photo up on the screen, and I'm gonna tell the story that's about to happen right now. So I start my car, drive straight down to Joann's Fabric, because that's what you do when you're starting a blanket company. I bought a sewing machine, a roll of fabric. I'm packing it home, walking into my home, and my wife and her friend are sitting watching TV, and I'm walking in with a sewing machine and a roll of fabric, just drained my savings account. And they're like, oh, what are you doing? I'm like, girls, I'm starting a blanket company. I was proud of that. And I'm getting into the blanket game, babe. So I realized really quickly that I can't sew, and quickly learned lesson one, the power of delegation. And I found this lady named Tammy, and I'm like, I'm talking with her. I'm like just literally interviewing just seamstresses in my community. And Tammy is like, oh, this is perfect. I'm already making blankets, and I'm keeping them in my car. And then when I see people on the street, I just pass one out to them. I'm like, Tammy, hired. Welcome to the Sackcloth and Ashes team. And so Tammy starts making me blankets, starts boxing them up. I take these boxes of blankets and I start driving up and down the Oregon coast, walking into shops and being like, here's why you need to buy these blankets over the blankets on your shelf, because I'm gonna drive straight down to your local homeless shelter and I'm gonna donate all of the blankets in my trunk. So I got into 20 shops out of about 200. Lesson number 2, about 1 out of every 10 things works out in entrepreneurship. And that one thing that ends up working out, it gets you to the next phase. And so get into 20 shops out of 200. And the only thing I really knew about business, I thought I was going into the nonprofit world or the ministry world or that was when I was I want to make a difference in the world. So I was thinking nonprofit, church world. And so business was not even on my radar. So the fact that I even went into business, it was okay, the only thing I really know is the power of perception. I just need to get people to become aware of what I'm actually doing. So got into 20 shops, hired the best photographers that I could, and on June 1st, 2014, sackclothandashes.com goes live. And I quickly map out a business plan, and my business plan was post on Instagram once a day. And literally that was it. That was all I had. And so I'm posting on Instagram once a day, and 5 months into business, in November of 2014, Instagram reaches out to me and they're like, Bob, we love your story, we love what you're doing, we want to feature you on Instagram's Instagram account. And I'm like, I think that's a big deal. Look it up, 42 million followers. So of course I get on the phone with Tammy, I'm like, Tammy, Instagram's about to post about. She's like, Insta what? I'm like, never mind, Tammy, just start making blankets. We need blankets. So I email back to Instagram and I'm like, hey, how long do I have to prepare for something like this? This sounds like a pretty big deal. I'm just I didn't tell them all the details, but I'm like, I got Tammy working for me and I got 20 blankets. And they're like, Bob, we're posting about you tomorrow. And it was the day before Black Friday. So Instagram posts about us and our story just goes out, and quickly hire my best friend. He just got hired into a manager position. And I'm like, Jordan, I need you to quit your job and I need you to work for a blanket company. So Jordan's like, of course. So Jordan quits his job, starts fraying blankets with me. And literally we're standing in line at USPS, handwriting labels, because we didn't know. We're standing in line, and Tammy's making as many blankets as she possibly can. And the power of the Instagram post wasn't just that we got this mass exposure, but it gave us instant credibility to pretty much work with any content creator on Instagram at that time. And so really back then, 2014, Instagram marketing or influencers wasn't really a thing yet. Like, people had a couple 100,000 followers, so it wasn't like, it wasn't as big of a deal as it is now. It hadn't evolved yet. It was kind of just in the early stages. So I could pretty much reach out to pretty much any Instagram influencer at that time and just be like, hey, can I send you a blanket, pay you some money, get 10 photos, and then you just promote us through our feed. So we had the honor to work with like some of the best content creators on social media for 4 years. So I built the company for 4 straight years, just primarily through social media marketing. And as the business started to grow, as the platform started to grow, we hadn't said one thing about homelessness at that time. And I really modeled this after I'm pretty inspired by the life of Jesus, where I grew up where people were on stages and they were like, trying to speak messages and stir and create movement. But when I really looked at the life of Jesus, he would go into the crowd, he would heal people, he would stir the movement, he would listen to people, and then he'd go up and he'd go, hey, the kingdom of God is at hand. Like, I'm gonna just describe what everybody is experiencing. And to model something after that, I was like, for 4 years, we need to just stir the movement. We need to just gain the platform. We need to have actually people that are willing to listen to us if we do end up speaking on the issue of homelessness. This is a big deal. So for 4 straight years, we didn't say one thing on the issue and just let the platform build. And on June 1st, 2018, our 4-year anniversary, we launched our first major campaign called Blanket the United States, where our goal is to donate 1 million blankets to homeless shelters by 2024. And we're gonna do this by partnering with people individually who buy a blanket from our website. We'll send a second blanket to your local homeless shelter. And we're gonna do this by partnering with businesses across the nation that wanna give a gift or an appreciation gift to their customers or their employees. They can now give a quality gift, a blanket, and make a difference. And so within a week of launching this campaign, we got a deal done with Subaru in Oregon. They bought 2,500 blankets. For every brand new Subaru purchased, it comes with a sackcloth and ashes blanket as a thank you. And in doing so, we were able to donate 2,500 blankets to homeless shelters across the state of Oregon. Shortly after that, a company ordered 5,000 blankets, and we donated 5,000 blankets to homeless shelters in California. Shortly after that, Cost Plus World Market bought 15,000 blankets, and now we're blanketing Texas, Colorado, Washington, and California. And so we're hitting this J curve where companies around the United States are buying blankets and giving them to their customers, but it's also a call to action to these really large companies that have these large platforms and resources to truly bring exposure to people and organizations around the United States that are actually doing something about the issue of homelessness. So I'm spending about 1/3 of my time now going to 3 to 4 different cities a month doing what's called a blanket drop, where I'll go to a homeless shelter or to a program, a men's or a women's program, and we'll show up with blankets. And this is an opportunity not only for me to invite executives and celebrities into these experiences that we're partnering with, but it's an opportunity for us to actually go in and learn about the incredible work that people are doing on the ground level, showing up every single day, making making a difference with the issue of homelessness. And literally every blanket drop I go to, I'm learning something new. Every blanket drop I go to, it changes me in a fresh new way. It was like 2 weeks ago, I got to do our first blanket drop actually in a program. And this was one of them. This is a women's program called Jean's Place in Portland, Oregon. And most of the time when we go to homeless shelters, it's like 300 people and they're eating in the cafeteria and I have to stand on a chair and like share a message and it's super chaotic and then we're passing out blankets to people. the programs have been an awesome kind of evolution to what we're doing because I'm able to circle everybody up and facilitate a conversation. And so I actually got to we partnered with Starbucks, and we brought one of the Starbucks teams to Gene's place with us, and we circled everybody up, and it was an opportunity for everybody in the room to be able to share something that they're learning or something that they're going through. And it didn't matter if you were an executive at Starbucks or you're a person coming in up through this program. For one moment, everybody felt like we're all on the same playing field. We're all equal for one moment, and we can all share something that we're learning and experiencing at that time. So these blanket drops have been incredible. When Nate called me up and asked me to share today, he was like, the theme is end. And at first I was like, I'm kind of a starter, so end was kind of like a different for me. But what it did was it immediately got me to like, okay, what kind of question can I put end into? And the question was like, when I look out into society, what do I want to end? And one might think that the easy answer for me is I'm going out and my goal is to end homelessness. But that's not the case. For me, in my journey and the things that I've been learning with the issue of homelessness is when I look out into society, what I personally want to end, my goal is to end a label-based society. We love to put labels on people. We love to put labels first. It's not that labels are bad, it's just that we lead with labels all the time. And so to give you an example, we use terminology like foster child, elderly person, abused woman, homeless person. And when we lead with labels, what that does is it completely isolates people out, and it isolates us when we place labels on ourselves. Like everybody in this room is not creatives. You are people that do creative things. And we have to make that shift in our language to being an identity-first society. We are people that happen to experience things. We're people that create things. But when we place labels on ourselves or when we place labels on other people, it draws a line. And that's probably the number one issue. Homelessness is not the main issue. The issue is that we're slapping labels on people and saying, this is what you are, and then you are a person. And so if we could get everybody in this room to, instead of saying homeless person, it's a person that is homeless, and we lead with identity, that's going to shift the way we think, because what we're doing is when you slap a label on somebody, you're connecting in all of the differences that you have with that person. Like I'm this, you're that, and then we are people. You're connecting in your differences. The goal in society to progress, to actually solving issues, is that we connect in our similarities. And number one, we are all people. Nobody in this entire room is exempt from difficult circumstances. We've either gone through, are going through right now, or will go through incredibly difficult times. We are all one job loss away from a really difficult season. We are all one family member loss away from a really dark season. And when I look at folks that are actually on the street, I'm starting to see I am more similar to them than I am different from them. And if we start to carry that mentality and we start to lead with identity first in the way that we interact with people, that's what's going to change society. So I'm not out to end homelessness, although I do hope to inspire the person that will change the issue of homelessness. But my goal is to use my voice and my platform to completely strip the mentality of putting labels on other people. And so now when I see people on the street, I don't just drive by. I look at them dead in the eyes and I see them as people, not projects. I see them as people, not objects. I see them as our brothers and our sisters and our fathers and our mothers. You see, my mother has taught me that not all people choose to become homeless, but some people just need a second chance, and some people just need a helping hand, and they all at least deserve a glance from us to see that they exist, that they are real people with real stories, that they're not just statistics that are spit out from the churches and the government. You see, my mother is a hard-working woman. Thank you guys for allowing me to share my story with you today.